property registered in the sole name of that person. So that itself leaves the other people disinherited by design. And since we have said that not majority of the people don't know the law, or they just don't know, the moment they are following up and they realize that this property is already in the name of this one person, they think that the person owns it legally. So that is also a challenge, but it can be addressed because they need to be forthright. Report to the police if you realize that someone died in 1980s and someone transferred the property in 2010 and they have not even followed up with succession process. So you need to be proactive. And also to add on that, apart from the sensitization exercise which we are doing as Office of the County Attorney, also took a personal initiative after I realized that gap of people really don't understand the law. I am sharing in my social platforms named I Know the Law with Advocate J.M. Chuma. You can follow me. And every day I purpose to enlighten something small about the law in the best way, in the simplest way people can understand it. And I'm usually very open to responding to questions. So that is it. Also, another way of helping people how the county can help the people to access these title deeds and ownership is through ensuring that every policy document, all the legislative framework which they are mandated to come up with, they are capturing all the gender sensitive, and they encompass all the people equally. And therefore, if maybe there is some public land which is due for reallocation to individuals, the county government can take that initiative and ensure that there is the inclusivity to the sense of not more than three quarters of the people who will benefit from that property, which will be given for free, just from the same gender. With that, it will be a way of ensuring that it is advancing the two-thirds gender rule, and ensuring that it is creating gender equity at the long run. Thank you.
A very interesting perspective. Lawyers want to imagine that you can legislate your way to prosperity or to development. Like every problem from a lawyer's perspective is bring the law. Let us get a law to address this or to resolve this. But then in the whole aspect, you realize that the laws are there, the laws are good, but also there's deeper, that has to, there's more that has to be done to really address the root issues, more than the law. And this will begin with, and I like the awareness creation, the sensitization, the civic education, that people now must become aware. And what is the implication of this? And interesting, because culture is not static. What the Kamba culture was in last 50 years, things have changed. Like we are now living in a different cultural context. We are still Kambas, and still culture keeps on evolving. And this means that we can really work a lot with the communities, with civic education, with awareness, and still keep on changing that culture, because culture evolves. Because the same culture that we are still holding to is just a construct that, people just sat together and agreed, because there are many things that 50 years ago were unheard of. Right now, the same people in that cultural context, they are still doing it differently. So I think we need to have all the stakeholders on board, but more importantly, not really to assume that I am knowledgeable, I am able to read and write, and I therefore really understand that these are the implications of this. And I like the idea of bringing all the stakeholders together, get the lands, the lands registry, the lands officers, the surveyors, get all the community leaders, the chiefs and everyone, to really understand what is the implication of this, and what is the benefit of this. And these investments will actually bear more fruits than actually having the law. Because like they keep on saying the law even as is today is still very clear on what needs to happen. But is it really happening? Do we really want to invest more in enforcing the law, or we want to invest more in programs that are creating awareness and empowering people? Because once people are already empowered, it really becomes a movement that will be able to drive the change.
Thank you, CEO. I've just remembered, you see, if we don't bring out this topic of ownership of property and some of the implications of the illegal ownership of land or the discriminatory way of ownership of property, it also trickles down to affecting development at the county level. You will realize that a project had started simply because the consent to develop for the county to use that property had been given by the men of that family. A few years later, the daughters of the family, they realized, oh yeah, this property was given out, we were not even involved, and no succession was ever done. It was just maybe through the back door, and our brothers got the title deed. So when these daughters go to court, of course that project will be stopped by a court order, and as a county you'll have to wait until when the issues at the court level have to be resolved. Therefore, this is a discussion which we need to carry on. From the boardrooms, we move it to the ground level, because we need to appreciate that majority of the land in our county, they have to undergo succession. And if something is done in the wrong way, at the county level, it is still going to affect us. And that is something we are regularizing, we are assisting, we are working hand in hand with the departments which have development projects involving land which have maybe been given by family, and helping to ensure that the whole process of ownership of the property, from where the consent of the family members are given to entering into the sale agreement, the agreement for maybe surrender, it is every person who is supposed to sign the document, including the daughters, among the women of that family, they sign. And that is a way of securing the investment.
Okay, public participation is a very key factor in devolution. So how does your department, which deals with planning, ensure that the voices of marginalized women, such as those with disability, nowadays they don't say living with disability, it's those with disability, are effectively captured and translated into budget priorities?
Yes, thank you. And the entire process of public participation as envisioned in the law is actually not just participating by just being present in terms of when the decisions are being made, but the outcome of it is the citizens must benefit in the outcomes of the process. So if you're looking at the budget, you're not just participating in determining or making a decision whether this project should be funded, but it's actually participation all the way through the entire spectrum to participating in the outcomes. So if you are moving to a forum and you're participating in terms of determining a health project, the real benefit of participation will come when citizens are able to drive or get services from that particular facility that has been prioritized. Therefore, it's not just enough to say we have prioritized a dispensary to be constructed here. Until that dispensary is complete, is in use, it has all the essential drugs and commodities, then there will be no meaningful participation. And therefore, this whole concept of participation is not just moving out and being present in the forum. And I remember when this process began in Makueni County, the initial stages were actually getting to empower the citizens, and you could move to the villages and citizens would be able to say, sisi ndio tunaamua ni nini nafanyika. Like we are the ones who really get to determine what gets to be done. And that then means that the citizens have a space in the decision-making term. But then, going further, you have to appreciate having people present does not mean that they will be heard. Does not mean that their needs will be met, will be prioritized. And therefore you realize in a congregation, and we have men, women, youth, persons with disability, and like we've said, since we are from a cultural perspective where the power imbalance is already existing. Women must keep quiet when men are speaking. So when you are facilitating this public participation process, you also understand those social dynamics. Then women are most likely not to really voice their concerns when this forum happens. And therefore, they need to really get to understand their needs in a different perspective. And I want to give an example where in a certain region, communities were really heated up, and they were debating which projects do we prioritize between a borehole and a dormitory for girls, a school dormitory for girls. And all men were up in arms and saying, no, we need a borehole close to our community because our women and children are moving long distance to want fetch water. But the women were actually saying, we need a dormitory here because our girls, we need our girls to be boarded. And when you look at it from the face value, everyone really, there's a lot of sense in terms of what the men are saying, what the women are saying. But the deep root of the issue was actually that men wanted the borehole closer to their village because they thought when their women get to a different village, they're going to beat other men. And women really thought that their men are coming back home late because, they are meeting school girls. So you realize, you have to understand what are these needs that are actually pushing the different categories of people to really have this point of view. And this, over time, when the public participation process began in the county, there was many open forums where everyone is open to come and participate. But we realized opening those forums does not remove those barriers. Still, women will come and they will not speak. And even men will even purport to speak on behalf of the women. And because of the power imbalance, they will not even disagree or disassociate themselves with the views. And out of that, then you are able to create different forums. And we call them thematic forums, where we have youth on their own, that they are able to give their views, they are free, and then they are able also to relate with their needs. Because when you look at the needs of the youth, healthcare needs, they are different from the needs of the general population. The same with women. So we have women thematic engagement, where then women are able to come together and say, these are our needs, even with respect to water, with respect to roads. Because the truth of the matter is that you are going to do a road, and then going deeper to the analysis we earlier said, who uses these roads? Who is going to benefit? If this road is going to an agricultural area, who is doing the farming in that region? Then if it is women, so how do we address the needs of those particular women in those particular areas? And the entire spectrum, you realize there are so many considerations that if you are not careful, you will just blindly have interventions that are not gender specific. And then the other bit was in the public participation process, we have the development committees at the forums, the structures that inform the public participation process. And within those structures, we have deliberately made sure that at every level, there are representation of women, representation of youth, representation of persons with disability, right from the village cluster, the sub-board, the ward level. So that it means, apart from the different thematic composition of whether men, women, and PWD, we have them integrated in the entire process. But then at the technical level, we have agenda sector working group that brings together the non-state actors, bring together the government officials, brings together the faith-based organizations, that all the matters with respect to gender, then they are discussed and gender mainstreaming. And all these efforts in an effort to ensure that we really listen to the voice of men, the voice of the women, with respect to the interventions that are done in the country.
Just listening to what Siomutu has just said, the whole aspect of public participation is only able to be successful if there is sensitization and the people really understand what exactly is expected of them. So I think at the county level, we have the civic educators and we have the development officers who have been fully trained on all this, and they are on full-time basis. They are on the ground, helping the people to understand the legal provisions and what should be the priority. Like you see, there's the CIDP and then there's the IDP. So they are able to be on the ground to be able to help the people to conceptualize. This is what is prioritized within this 5-year span. This is what is prioritized within this year. and for them now to be able to do a project which is not outside, to prioritize a project which is not very much outside the scope of what is within the CIDP. Yes.
Well, good insights from you two. Are you a woman? Are you disabled? And at the same time, a woman? Do you attend those forums for public participation, whether from the county government, whether from the county assembly, or the national government? Do you go and speak about development, what you want done in your area? Or do you just keep quiet for the men to speak for you? This is the best place for you to learn all that, whether it's good for you to speak or whether that will help you. Next, maybe you can give us some of the indicators, Sio Mutua, that the county use to ensure that the budget allocations actually benefit women, specifically on that.
Specifically, because remember we mentioned about the budgets meeting practical and strategic gender needs. And in this case, because the big conversation here is about access and control of resources. And these resources from land to access to finance and credit. And therefore, one of the indicators is to track, the financial assistance, the credit framework that is in place to help women access credit, access finances, so that they can actually be able to establish enterprises and also run agricultural value chain programs that are actually going to benefit directly to the households. And therefore, when you look at our budgets, if you look in and analyzing the budget with a gender lens, you need to look at what are the investments, what are the budget lines that are actually geared towards removing the barriers. Because we've seen women are not likely to get access to credit when they really get to the bank, because most of them are actually working at the household. And then if you're going to the bank to access credit, you have to give logbooks as collateral. But then when you have the county government investing in programs that they don't need those collateral to really get access to credit, to start small business, and then also having specific financial literacy, financial targeted to women-owned enterprises. Then you'll also be able to see some of the outcomes in terms of how many of these women are actually participating in government procurement opportunities through the AGPO, getting enterprises owned by women, and they are the women who are really getting to supply, to make those supplies and contracts. Secondly, you can analyze even from the point of revenue. See how many of these enterprises that we are getting to license for fees and for the rates are actually owned by women. And even go further, and because we've seen, for example, in our county, most of the businesses that really get to start, they barely get to celebrate their first birthday. Most of the businesses will close between 6 to 9 months. So again, you're able to track how many of women-owned businesses have actually been able to overcome that particular barrier, and that they're able to celebrate 1 year, 2 years in business. And lastly then is looking at the budget and asking yourself, who benefits from this budget? You have an allocation of 150 million in agriculture, for example, to support value chain. But then we need to ask who benefits in that value chain, because it will depend at what level is the investment being done. If you do this investment at the value addition, at the processing level, we have very few enterprises owned by women at the processing level, because we have most of them owned by men. But at the small scale, at the household, small scale, smallholder farmers, we have very many women down at that value chain. So the idea is to ensure that if you work on aggregation, you bring the women together, the collectivization of the producers, the aggregators. Now you are actually beginning to benefit the women directly, because they are able to get better prices at that level of production. Therefore, when you look at the budget, it's not just enough to say this particular budget will also benefit women who are farmers. So in analyzing the budgets, you have to constantly keep on asking who benefits from this budget. So if you see a budget line, for example, in the Department of County Attorney, that we have 50 million for land succession, we need to go deeper and ask what component is being addressed. Because if the component that is being addressed is the one for helping the succession, helping court, these are the pain points for women who are not economically empowered. And therefore, when you just see a budget, you don't just get satisfied to say we have a budget for land succession, at least women will benefit. But the point is, at what point or who benefits from this entire budget? And therefore, what we began with the concept of the gender responsive budget is really ensure that we are able to attribute the benefit. Because it is not just enough to have the budget, we have to narrow down to the benefit and ask ourselves who benefits, how do they benefit, and how does this budget line help in removing the barriers and creating opportunities for men and women to actively participate in economic activity, because that is what ultimately will bring development. And we look at this even in the lens of the Sustainable Development Goals. Mm-hmm. It has been argued that out of the 17 goals, you only need to deliver 3 goals, and they will act like a pull factor to the rest of the goals. Mm-hmm. And with this, we say, if you really empower women, you will not need to struggle to address food poverty, you will not struggle to address education of children, you will not struggle to address inequalities. And therefore, like, these are part of investments. Goal 5, if you focus on empowerment for goal 5, by the end of the day, you will have attained many goals by actually focusing on a few goals.
Mm-hmm. Just to add on what Siamutu has said, if you look at, I was not, when he's talking about the aspect of the budgeting and who benefits, I was just like kind of blind to whatever was happening at the ground level, because it's until I went on site, I interacted with the community when we were doing the sensitization, the legal clinics awareness, when I realized that women, especially, you see in the Kamba culture, we have a type of marriage called woman-to-woman marriage, mm-hmm. that is Iweto. Mm-hmm. Is when I realized the struggles those people go through. These people, the society, in as much as it is a cultural practice which is recognized, the society has not embraced them fully, and therefore even their sense of belonging in that family, it is still based on goodwill. So when we are talking about CEO saying who benefits from that budget, I can say to an extent this issue of legal awareness, it's a point at which benefits directly to women, because they were able to hear the law and now understand on how to stand firm and enforce what is legally theirs.
Mm-hmm. So maybe to talk about a little bit about law, how do customary practice conflict with statutory law, and how can women navigate this tension without tearing a family? You know, those conflicts that we have always in the family.
Thank you. This is a good question and timely. Customs, the Constitution of Kenya appreciates that the customary practices, they form part of the laws of Kenya, to an provided that they don't in any way contravene with the provisions of the Constitution, or they don't violate the human rights as envisaged in the Constitution. And therefore, that being the case, we will only talk about the right customs, and all through I've been talking about customs which are in place only to the extent where they are not contravening with the Constitution. But you'll find that there are some customs, some cultures, which have been normalized over time, which conflict with the law generally. For example, according to majority of the tribes, majority of the customs, women are not allowed to actively participate in decision making, or they are not supposed to actively participate in governance. That is why if you go to this clan leadership, you'll find that it is basically men dominated, mm-hmm. and it is supposed to resolve conflicts all to address issues affecting the bigger society, where it is talking about children, women, men, and all that. So at the end of it all, you will find that the outcomes will not be gender responsive. And another aspect is the issue of women. They are not supposed to own property. All the place of women is just getting married, and you just going to stay fully to your husband's place. So this brought in the aspect of you cannot quit your marriage no matter whatever happens. You just silently stay there. Don't come back and start telling us this is what is happening. And that has created a community whereby people have normalized domestic violence, suffering in the name of I'm protecting my marriage. And that also has seen women being excluded from ownership of property, because if at your space, at your where you are born, you are not supposed to go back. Even where you are married, chances are you will be mistreated, and no one will question, or no one will be able to stand out for you. But I can say that all those practices, as I have just listed, they're just a tip of iceberg, and all of them, they are in contravention with the law, because as I mentioned, Article 27 of the Constitution talks about every person has equal rights, and it outlaws any form of discrimination, whether based on sex, based on race, based on cultural beliefs, and everything else. So that one came in to cure all those cultural practices which are discriminatory, or they are in a way alienating the woman from just the key governance structures, key property ownership structures in the society. So the law, I can mention some few provisions of the law. As I said, women now, they can own property, just like men can own property. Every person has a right to, if you buy your property as a woman, you can have it registered in your name as a person, as a woman, without having to consult with your husband or consult other male friends. And also, when we talked about the matrimonial property, it is presumed that the property which you acquire during the proceedings of your marriage, where you are living, it is presumed to be matrimonial property, and therefore this gives the woman an upper hand, such that if the man decides to wake up and start selling the property, they cannot dispose that property without the involvement of the woman. The woman the spouse has to give consent before that property can be used as security for a loan or to be disposed. Therefore, you find that the law is coming in to give woman the power to ownership of property. Thank you.
So maybe you can tell us some of the legal protections or, regulations that exist to protect widows, to protect daughters, especially when land issues arise, land disputes.
Thank you. I'll start with the law on which protects widows. The law on succession appreciates that when a spouse dies, the priority on ownership of property, or who should inherit that property, the priority is given to the surviving spouse, all the surviving spouses. So in this case, a woman, once their spouse dies, they are the ones. Whether, you see, there has been these misconceptions of family members, all siblings of this deceased husband, some of them going to an extent of hiding key documents like the title deeds, or they hide the death certificate, so that this woman who is left behind cannot access them. The law does not envisage that if you have been left with the title deeds, in possession of the title deeds or the death certificate, you will be the one to inherit. It is very clear and it is well provided that the surviving spouse, where in this case it is the woman who has been left behind, ranks first in priority in inheriting that property of the deceased husband, so that one protects them. Also, because also the law on succession also provides for other categories of people to inherit, like the children. You find that in scenarios whereby this husband had many children, the property which he has left behind, let's say it was matrimonial property. Matrimonial property will not form part of the succession for reason that the share of the woman, the surviving woman will be able to show the court that this was my share this was matrimonial property, and this was my share, and so our share will not be available for purposes of succession. Therefore, that is one element how the law protects that. And when we come to the aspects of daughters, because all of us women are daughters at one place, the law, by recognizing that every person has a right to own property, gives them the power to own their own property, to buy their own property, have it written in their names. And also, if it is a property which has been left behind by their deceased parents, the daughters can go, have a right now to be included in the whole inheritance of that property of their deceased parents, irrespective of whether it is land, whether it is motor vehicles or money in the bank. All those they can partake in sharing of, and they are sharing equally, not just a segment of we are giving you one plot, yet the plots are so many and their value are so high. So that is one way which protects them. And another way in which the daughters are protected is in case now the patriarchal system takes charge in the whole saga of inheritance of the property, they can go to court and make an application that they have been, tell the court that, look here, this is the property of my deceased parent, but my brothers, when they were doing the succession process, they did not even include my name, and the court will listen to your application, analyze the evidence, and give orders that whatever process had proceeded of the inheritance, they can nullify the whole process and order the family members to include the daughters who have been left behind. So the law protects, wholesomely protects the daughters, and also in the same breath, you'll find that if some properties had illegally, like I had mentioned earlier, that there are people who are so cunning, someone goes ahead and illegally processes ownership documents by forging of the signatures of the parents when they are long gone without going the succession way. If you realize, as a daughter of that family, if you realize that that property has been transferred to your brothers just because they wanted to disinherit you, that is a criminal. The law recognizes that is a criminal process, and you can go to court and you can get justice because the whole title deed can be revoked and it reverts back to the name of your deceased parent, and therefore it will be available for succession. Also, another way the law protects the daughters is in scenarios whereby you find that their share has been given there, and their share has been given, but it is not adequate, and it is not equal to what the brothers were getting. Someone can just raise the issue to court, and the court can just order that the daughter be adequately provided for in that property. So I can say the law has, to a great extent, protected the widows and the daughters. But on the aspect of widows, the succession law is somehow discriminative, in the sense that It provides that if a surviving widow, whatever they have inherited, if they remarry, or they get the love of their life after their spouse dies and they marry, whatever they had inherited from their deceased husband, now it reverts back. They don't continue owning whatever they had inherited. It goes back to the estate to be available for inheritance by the other people. So I find that provision of the law to be so discriminatory. And going forward, I think the lawmakers, they can consider that, amending the same so that it cannot be discriminatory.
A lot of insights from you. We are learning a lot. Keep your questions coming down there, and she's going to respond. And going to respond basically to every of your questions. So
just an interesting, because if you look at the law, the designers of the law, you want to ask yourself, who made these laws, and who does this law benefit? Because in that scenario, who benefits from such an arrangement? It's actually still the male. It's still the patriarchal that still benefits that.
That we talked about earlier.
Yeah, a man will be allowed to remarry without using that. But I think Wakili can also mention the bit of, because the law will protect you when you are alive and even when you are dead. And this concept of women, people doing their will. And I think if you look at may not have the right statistics, but how many women really, you've seen them say that they have actually written down their will? Because I also think part of how the law protects that is really setting out that in a will, and walk around and ask how many women really have a will. And I think also that's something that needs to go out, because you can actually get your things. Probably she can speak about that. You can still set out your things in a will as a woman. So I think the law will protect that and ensure that you are still protected whether you are alive or you are dead.
Thank you, Sio Mutua. Before I address that issue, I've just remembered that daughters of a family, they are also protected in the sense that you realize that because you are married from very far, your siblings start selling the property even long before they can do succession. The law has gone to a great extent in outlawing that. In fact, the sale of property of a deceased person without first taking out succession or letters of administration, it is a criminal offense. Therefore, if you realize that there is some sales which took place before you were involved in the whole succession process, that one is a nullity. And therefore, as a daughter of that family, you are protected, because you will not be a party to this. You will not be forced to say 5 acres were sold. So this property, these 5 acres, in as much as they sold, it was an illegality. And when now the right succession process will continue, you will be able to get your shares. So they will not tell you they sold anything.
Okay.
And now to respond to the issue of who really benefits, you when you look at the whole sense of the old saga of being disinherited if you marry, you see human beings are social beings. So the law should not go and dictate this person that if you marry all what, because this was an arrangement of people who loved each other. And now I can just advise people, because that is the law. If you want to plan, you can plan your life on how your estate, all the properties you leave behind, once you die, how the property will be used. By just being diligent enough, you leave behind a valid will. In this will, now you have the autonomy, you have the power to be able to show or to indicate who really will, after I die, who will really own this property. And in that, you can even write, will they own for their entire life, or they will own for as long as they continue living in my space. So that gives you that autonomy. And also, while still alive, you can, if you really want to manage your estate very well, you can just get the properties which are in your name. You transfer to the people you feel like I want to transfer them. to them, so you can just sign the documents, the proper documentation, and the people will get the ownership documents in their name while still you are alive. And if you have given a gift to someone while you are alive, this will not become a subject for discussion during the succession process when you will have long gone. So that is one way. Those are some of the ways through which you can alleviate conflict and ensure that the people you leave behind, they are well taken care of, because all your relationship was founded on love, not manipulation or economic enrichment.
Okay.
Yes.
So back to you, Theo Mutua. This is very technical. So what happens when law is progressive but the budget does not support implementation?
Yes, we've seen, and I want to begin, we've seen, everyone has said our constitution is very, very progressive. They're very nice to have things, the things that you really need to have for a progressive society. That you realize on paper, there are very good proposals, there are very good strategies, but it's not just enough to have the good intentions, because the problem comes on the mechanism of implementation, on the how of implementation. And you've heard people say, the road to hell is paved with very good intentions on the side. So you may realize we have very good papers and very good policies, but how to implement them? Then that's where the challenge comes in, because you have very good aspiration. And I've seen most of the laws, every other sector design laws and say we want 2% of the budget to be dedicated to this particular sector. We want 1% of the budget to go to youth activities. There is no way you can actually legislate the entire budget, the entire resource allocation by law and say that 2% must go through this. Because we must even ask ourselves, these resources, they are going to do what? Then when we have the proper policies, the laws in place, we will produce, what you say from the shelves, you will have attained the development from shelves. But in the actual, in the practical sense, then it becomes very difficult to show results, because the real work comes in translating those laws into actual benefits to the people. Because by having the law by itself, it's not an end by itself. The law just becomes a means to facilitate the delivery of this development. And therefore, there is this push to really ensure that we want to address something, put it in law, put it in a policy, have a policy framework. Nobody even sits back to ask, is it working?
But while still there,
yes.
If I may ask, in the ask you are talking about, we have progressive laws, but the issue is the implementation. If I may ask you, some of the implementation of some of the laws, do we really need, is it a budget problem or it is societal creation? I'll give you an example with the 2/3 gender rule, the representation in governance. Do you think the budget which is allocated, which is spent in, let's give you example of the parliament, we still have the number of people required to sit in parliament, but have we attained the 2/3 gender rule? So in that aspect, the budget is still, if the budget to pay those members of parliament is 2 million, it is still being spent. So are you saying it's a budget problem, or what is your comment on that?
Yes, we will not say really a budget problem as such, and because the question is, you get the 2/3 or the 1/3 of the gender in parliament, but then what outcomes? Will that change how the laws are meant to impact on women differently? Will that make sure that now women are actually participating in decision making? Because the issue here is not just having them, and I think the spirit is not just having them present in the house, but really having them participating in the highest level of decision making. Because when you look at parliament, that is the highest level of decision making in terms of how resources are allocated. And therefore, it is not really an issue of resources, but it is also an issue of the entire societal mindset. that we really must appreciate that having women in power, it's really a development issue. It's not just really having women just be there and represent women.
Exactly.
Because we still have that mindset that, oh, this is just a women rep, and we have nothing to do with what she does. It's just going there to represent women. And therefore we begin losing focus on the bigger picture in terms of why did we in the first place think and conceptualize of having a third gender and creating that space. Because even opening the door and it's not just enough, and opening, the boardroom and having the women come in, their voice must be heard. Their voice must be heard, and their voice must be seen in decisions. Because it's not just enough to say we are constituting a committee and we just doing it to tick a box, or we just want 3 women out of 10, and you're able to say our committee is constitutionally constituted. And even an example is even when you look at workforce and employment, an organization will say we have 3,000 employees, and out of these, 2,000 are women. But I want you to look at, it's not just enough to say women and numbers. Look at, for example, let me look at an organization like a county government. If you look at those women that form majority of the officers, which cadres are they working? Realize most of them are working as ECD teachers, and others are working like nurses. At the lower level. What pay grade are they? And if you cumulatively take all the earnings for the 2,000 women, compare that with the earnings for the 1,000 men, is there discrepancy? And is it just enough to say that we have just met the threshold of we are above a third, we are above the 2/3? But because we must go further and say, are we even creating opportunities for women to grow? Are we creating opportunities for women to be promoted? Are we having policies? And I've seen Nairobi County recently, the governor signed an executive order saying women have 2 days in a month
to go. And
you begin realizing that those are some of the policies that are able to break the barriers that exist. Because we cannot just live and assume that it is all normal. And even myself, even working and supervised staff, and I've realized, for example, during this festive season, you realize this is a time like all the house managers, you give them leave days to go off. So the probability that an officer who is a lady is likely to be at home without a health help, it's like 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And if you are a supervisor, part of wearing this lens is even looking at your work that has emerged. You would rather even, recall a male colleague to actually do work
than a female colleague.
Because you really understand that these are that. You don't just assume that, no, you guys are on the same level, you're performing this role, because then you must really be able to appreciate that at the back of your mind, that there's a lot that goes with that, and you must. Because a man will just, if the house help doesn't come in January, and this is always the trend. The first day you are reporting to work, somebody tells you that they're not coming. Who is likely to miss work? It's a lady officer. It's not like how many times will your husband miss work because they have to babysit the kids?
So and does that one affect their performance and also the general perception by the employers, which trickles down now to promotions and the allocation of senior roles?
Yeah, absolutely. It has a huge impact, because you can imagine you are lady, men don't really have the monthly period and that. Therefore, their productivity is almost optimal. For a lady, there will be a lot of
there's so much
that goes
on
into
in her
that.
life.
and then you ask yourself, does that really affect the productivity? It does to a large extent. To a great extent. But the issue is how do we ensure that then we are sensitive to this? We really get to really appreciate this. And therefore, and this is what people have actually said. The whole discussion about gender is like you're running a race, where even when the woman wins, she will never be given the gold medal. She will always go for silver or bronze, even if she has won. So the idea is to break these barriers and ensure that a woman who wins is able to get the gold medal that she deserves. But even the discussion must begin right from the household level, because how the society is structured. There is a household level, and there's a community, and there are the institutions. Because at the household level, this issue of gender and breaking the barriers, people have said most of when women are taught to break glass barriers, someone said like most of your glass barriers sleep next to the entire night. So like you have to begin breaking the barriers right from the household, then get to the community, get to the church elders, get to the pastors, because the church has a very strong influence on the society. And what happens? Can these discussions about that women can own land? Why is it that when men are giving out their girls, through these dowry ceremonies, they will bring the church, and the church will there be, there and the pastor saying, be submissive to your husband, a man shall live his, wife, mother and father shall live together. But when it comes to sharing properties and resources, and the church is silent. The pastor is silent.
Some of the parents are silent.
Some of the parents are silent. Which side are they taking? For them,
even some of the women are silent.
Some of the women are also silent. Yeah, even when they contributed that and they say, I'm doing this for the sake of peace. But let me tell you, there is no special place in heaven for you because you really tolerated. Culture and traditions that don't work.
That's true.
So the societal institutions must also work to ensure that they play a big part. And the last one is the institutions now, where the government comes in, the judiciary, the law enforcement agencies. So when you look at these three actors, they really play a critical role. But the biggest role is really begin at the household, so that everybody understands that you don't have any particular privilege because you are born a boy. Because it actually begins at home. Everybody thinks that they've even had women saying, I think in my next life I want to come back as a man. So it's still the women who are still perpetrating the same concept that it's a privilege to be born a man. And you begin even saying, of course you will understand this comes with the privilege that really come because you are born a man. But then to really all this must be addressed in those three levels. At the household level, there must be efforts to ensure that everybody comes out of that household understanding that we are all born equal, we all have equal opportunities, and there is nothing really unique just because you are born with a male reproductive organs. There's nothing unique about you. This God has leveled the diamond.
Okay, so climate change and disasters generally impact women more than men. How has the county integrated gender lens addressing these risks?
Yes, thank you. And also the fact that you said women are affected more by climate change, but so it's also true that also women contribute less to the climate change. Yet they bear the huge burden. They are the ones who suffer most in a problem that they have contributed very little, to that. Because if you look at the part of the activities that have actually led to climate change, deforestation, it's actually men who are going out there in the forest, cutting these trees for charcoal. They're the ones who are exploiting the natural resources, and who bears the biggest burden is the women. And this in three sectors, or the nexus between agriculture, water, and healthcare is actually, because in the agriculture sector is 80% of the labor in the agriculture sector is women, and therefore they really, when the rains are failing, when there is no harvest, it's actually women who are actually suffering in that particular sector. When you look at water, it's women who are trekking 6 kilometers to go and fetch water, and therefore when climate change hits, they really hit so hard on women. And part of the intervention that the county government and we've been able to work on is ensuring that we have climate smart agricultural practices, that women, as much as the rains are not long, they are not much, they are able to harvest. And this includes providing the correct information, ensuring that this information is timely. This is the right variety that you're supposed to plant, when are you supposed to plant it, and this information really empowers the farmers. Again, access to market. They have information on which markets have which prices, and this then makes sure that you grow green gram, you can actually sell and buy maize, buy rice because you don't produce those particular food commodities. The second sector in water is actually ensuring that we have now technologies that are able to really address the effects of climate change. For example, we have boreholes that are powered by solar, not now depending on diesel and electricity. And the implication is that women are able to draw water at a cheaper rate. Because when they are solar powered, when they are using technology of tokens, you are able to have smart meters. Women are able to benefit and ensure that they spend less time by traveling less distance, but also the resources that they would have utilized. For example, a jerrycan of water, when you're using diesel powered generators, a jerrycan of 20 liters can retail as high as 5 shillings. But using solar technology, that can go as low as 2 shillings, meaning that there is income available for women to spend on other sectors. And the last one is healthcare. When we have so many diseases that actually come because of we have polluted environment, and most of them, the ones who are affected are women and children. Meaning that now, if we have measures to protect the environment, to conserve the environment, it's actually women who benefit the most from this intervention that really get to happen. And this is to ensure that the interventions around resilience interventions, adaptation on climate change, then they must be implemented with also a gender lens to see you are really getting to see the ones who are suffering most. They are the ones who are supposed to have the right voice. We are supposed to listen to the voice of the ones who are really where the shoe is back, where the shoe is pinching. And this case is women.
In 2 minutes, or in 1 minute, sorry, maybe you can give us your way forward.
Thank you. Before you go to the way forward, I wanted to add just something small to that question on climate change and women. I think, you see, the county government is the one which is bestowed with the power to make laws and implement anything to do with climate change. So what as the Office of the County Attorney we have been able to do is ensure the climate change laws, they are gender inclusive and enough representation of women in core decision-making components, like from the committees which have been formed by the laws. We ensure that they encompass women, and not just women, just being there, sitting there as members, but we have ensured that the laws, if it is the chairperson has been elected, has been chosen to be a man or a woman, the vice should just be of the other gender. So that one will ensure that the decision-making which are coming from those committees, they encompass the gender lenses.
Okay.
My take home from this discussion is, as you have heard, I serve in the Office of the County Attorney, and the Office of the County Attorney bears the burden of advising the county departments, all the county departments on the laws, assisting them in the lawmaking process, and also in the litigation, and advising them on advising them on the law. So what we have been able to do is the Office of the County Attorney is every law we facilitating or we are developing, we ensure that it is in compliance with the national legal framework and also the international legal instruments, like the key conventions which talk about gender inclusivity. And so we have ensured that the laws are in compliance with that. And also another aspect we have done is we are actively involved in litigation where we feel that a component of the law, maybe at the national level or at the county level, they have breached the provisions of the law, especially on the gender aspect. We are in the forefront in litigating the same to ensure that justice is served. Also, another way in which we are coming in is ensuring that the advisories we are offering to the departments, they are advisories which they have to comply with, and advisories to help them to realize the gender equality in all their aspects. Because let's give an example of the department, the budget, the finance department. In its budgeting, there's no way the office of the county attorney will overlook when they are talking about, they will only construct maybe ECD classes which are accommodating maybe children who are boys. So that one in total, it is not in line with the law. So basically we will be there looking at what is this department doing. Even if it has not sought our advisory, our legal advisory, we will offer, we have the powers to offer unsolicited legal advice and help all the departments to ensure compliance with the laws. And lastly, we have been in the forefront in the sensitization on land laws and succession. As I have just talked earlier, we are going out there in the field to make that person, that elderly woman, that man, that brother who has never known what the law says, and they have all in their own imagination thought to themselves that all the property is theirs and women have no say on property. We are going out there telling them this is the law and this is how best you can do to ensure that there is compliance of the law when you are dividing the properties. Or if it is a couple, if this property is matrimonial property, telling them, look here, if you want to sell this property, if you don't involve your wife, if your wife does not sign the core documents, this process will not go through. Instead of these people coming to fight because the woman went to the bank and said they did not give their consent, they are able to understand at that level, and therefore that helps to advance gender equality, at the same time reducing conflicts at the family level. And lastly, but not the least, there's this aspect of, you asked a question on how the customary practices marry with the statute, the legal provisions, and how daughters and widows can be able to enforce the same without breaking families. I want to tell you that by the time someone is going to enforce their legal rights, it means someone has already trampled upon their right and there's nothing to protect. There's nothing like family ties, all that. So if you really, as a family, want to protect that unity, that brotherhood, I would really advise you that you ensure that there is a proper follow-up of the law, ensure you implement what is the law, or whatever you agree is in consensus. And also there is alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Even if your ideologies in whatever aspect you are discussing, you don't all agree on it, you can always have mediation, negotiation, and to come to a consensus. That would help to solve the conflict. But if you wait until someone goes to court to enforce their right, there is nothing to salvage there. Family ties will be broken, and everyone will just be left on their own, and justice will be served in the interest of the affected party. Thank you.
Good. In 1 minute, your way forward.
Thank you. My way forward is we need to design our development and utilize data and statistics to inform and guide development. And why I'm looking for this is simple. I want you to look at current statistics. You realize only 77% of household cooking or cooking fuel is clean, meaning 93% they're using firewood as cooking fuel. And who is affected by this? That smoke, all the health, disadvantage that come with that, is women.
And children.
Look at the number of hours, and you've seen the report from the unpaid domestic and care work, the number of hours that women are dedicating for the care and, guiding and even giving homework to children is even 10 times the number of hours men are spending. And if they are using kerosene as source of light, that is also a direct health implication to the children.
Yeah.
So it means if we do our investment and our development and we focus on clean energy, we are actually literally saying we are impacting directly on lives of millions and millions of women.
Yeah.
Look at access to resources. What is the proportion of women who have access to title deeds? If we say, the number of households that have title deeds are 30% in a county, out of that 30%, how many are women? So we must now begin this conversation and every time segregate these to sex-based data, that you're able to speak to that. When you say this is a population of the elderly, how many are women out of that category that we're talking about? So every time we begin segregating, then we also begin understanding the dynamics that really affect that. For example, you will assume right now you've talked about public participation, and it's very easy to say we are now going digital. We are now going to be doing e-public participation. But even as you still design those interventions, go deep and ask yourself, out of the entire population, what is the proportion of women that own smartphones? Before you really say that now we are able to do our participation online. Because if a few percentage own smartphones, it means very few are going to participate. So this at every instance, you have to look at that data in that gender lens, and data will play a key role. Segregating it. Even when you look at households, you say, what is household income? What is the income for the households that are headed by women? And then what are the other socioeconomic dynamics and parameters? Drilling down and saying, this is what the data says. And then you're able to use that and do programming to ensure that we remove the barriers and address, give them opportunities that they are able to effectively participate in economic activities. But overall, my take home from listening from the legal perspective and the challenges is really a lot is required to change the mindset right from the household. This conversation must really begin and really get to. Now, right now, I think it's high time to get safe spaces for men that this conversation can really happen, and they also get to be assured that these are safe space. Because the power imbalances, you're actually shifting the power from the man now to the women at all levels. So we also need this conversation with men. But even more importantly, we can also get utilization of data is very important, even by the citizens. That the citizens, there is the concept of the citizen-generated data, where we have, because if you look at the household at the community level, the citizens know which household yesterday they slept without a meal. Government does not have access to that data, neither civil society or any other person. But the citizens, the communities, they know that. They know which girl dropped out of school because they are they got a baby. They know which family has issues of sexual and gender-based violence. That information is there. So how do we find a mechanism of now riding on that citizen-generated data and help, in response, in advocacy, in intervention, and that becomes part of creating evidence for decision-making and also for intervention towards sustainable development goals. But the truth of the matter is that we are not likely to achieve sustainable development goals if SDG number 5
it's not addressed.
It's not achieved. Like there will be no sustainable development if SDG number 5 is not addressed. Because even the clarion call for SDGs is leave no one behind.
Yes.
So as much as women are left behind, there's not going to be sustainable development goals. And the sustainable development goals is built on the 5 pillars: prosperity, people, peace. There's no way we are going to have peace when women are left behind. There's no way we're going to have prosperity as long as women are left behind. So, this we must all look at it and center it around creating opportunities for women and economic empowerment for the women. And this is not to say that we are doing this at the expense of the boy child or at the expense of men. We are first appreciating that as the game began, someone who had one goal and the other one was 0 at time 00. So this is just leveling the ground and ensuring that there's fair play.
Okay. Now, as we wrap up today's conversation, achieving this requires strong laws, intentional budgeting, and a collective shift in mindset. Now, my sincere thanks to the County Solicitor Jennifer Chumwa and the County Chief Officer for Budgeting Boniface Mutua for making time to be here. To our listeners, conversations like this matter because then you get to know your rights. You also get to know and engage your leaders and be part of shaping a more equitable future. Until next time, this has been Tanu's podcast, fresh, bold, and real. Goodbye.